They underestimated you, didn't they? Good. Let 'em. That's the beauty of this game. When they think you're nothing, you're free to be everything. When they think they've figured you out, you're already 10 steps ahead. And when they look back to see who's been pulling the strings, they'll realize it was you all along. Quiet, calculated, and unstoppable. This isn't just a story, it's a blueprint. A revelation wrapped in shadows and strategy. A masterclass on how to turn every doubt, every sneer, and every dismissive glance into a weapon sharper than any blade. Because when you let them believe you're small, their guard comes down. When you play dumb, they never see you coming. So here you are, standing at the edge of your old life, looking down at the pieces of a puzzle no one else bothered to solve. Those pieces, they're yours to arrange. The world has told you what you can't do, what you'll never be. And you've smiled, nodded, and let them think they were right. But deep down, you've known all along, that smile wasn't agreement. It was strategy. This is your moment, the beginning of your awakening. A tale of wit and resilience, of playing the long game and winning in ways they'll never understand. Because this isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were always right. You just needed to bide your time. The game is on. The board is set. And the one thing they'll never set, and the one thing they'll never see coming, is you. Ready to outthink, outlast, and outsmart them all. Keep listening, because the rules are about to change. Listen carefully. This is the moment your life begins to change. Right now, in this very second, you're standing at a crossroads. The world has looked at you, measured you, and decided you don't measure up. They've labeled you, dismissed you, maybe even pitied you. And for too long, you've let those labels stick. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. Those labels, those judgments, they're a gift. A cloak that hides your brilliance, your resilience, and your unstoppable potential. The world loves to underestimate people. It's easier that way. It keeps them comfortable. When they see someone who doesn't fit their mold, someone who's quiet, unsure, or different, they assume that person is weak. They assume you're weak. And in that moment, they've already lost. Because what they don't understand is that the power of being underestimated is like holding a loaded deck. They think you're playing with scraps, but you've got aces up your sleeve. People want to be like you, but you got aces. Number 9, let's be real for a second. You've felt the sting of being overlooked, haven't you? You've watched others get chosen, promoted, celebrated while you were left in the shadows. And each time it happened, a little voice inside you whispered, maybe they're right, maybe I'm not enough. That voice is a liar. You are more than enough. You've just been playing the wrong game. See, this world isn't built for the loudest or the flashiest. It's built for the smartest. It's for you, your life is built for the smartest. It's for the strongest. It's built for the smartest. For the ones who learn to see beyond the surface, who understand the rules well enough to break them. And here's the first rule you need to know. When they underestimate you, they give you power. Power to move unnoticed. Power to plan your next move without interference. Power to strike when they least expect it. Think about it. Every time someone wrote you off, what did they do next? They relaxed. They stopped paying attention. They made mistakes. And you've been paying attention this whole time. Every insult, every smirk, every time they thought they had you figured out, you've been taking notes, watching, learning, planning. That's why they'll never see you coming. But let me ask you something. Are you ready to stop being the quiet observer? Come on, are you ready to stop letting them call the shots? Because this is the moment where everything changes. This is the moment where you take that power they handed you and use it to build something unstoppable. No more sitting in the background. No more letting them decide your worth. It's time to flip the script. Here's the truth about people who underestimate you. They fear you. They might not say it. They might not even know it. But deep down, they're terrified. Because the second you realize your potential, the second you stop playing small, you become unstoppable. They see the spark in you, the one you've been too afraid to unleash. And they're praying you'll never figure out how much fire you've got in you. But guess what? Their prayers won't be answered today. This isn't just about outsmarting them. It's about rewriting the rules entirely. It's about showing them that the quiet ones, the underestimated ones, are the ones they should have feared all along. And it starts with you deciding, right now, that you're done playing their game. You've got a choice to make. You can keep living in the shadow of their expectations, or you can step into the light of your own potential. You can keep letting their opinions define you, or you can redefine yourself. But let me warn you, this isn't the easy path. It's the warrior's path. It's the path of quiet strategy, of silent resilience, of playing dumb while outthinking them all. Think of every great strategist in history, every underdog who rose to power. Do you think they shouted their plans from the rooftops? Do you think they told the world what they were about to do? No, they worked in silence. They let their enemies think they were weak, unprepared, unworthy. And when the time came, they moved with precision and purpose, leaving everyone else scrambling to catch up. The change impulse was like no other crazy ability he'd ever felt before. That's the game you're about to play. The game where your silence becomes your strength, where your patience becomes your weapon, and where their arrogance becomes their downfall. And here's the best part, they'll never see it coming. So what's it gonna be? Are you gonna keep letting them underestimate you? Or are you gonna turn their underestimation into the greatest advantage you've ever had? Footnote, are you going to stay in the shadows, or are you going to learn how to use those shadows to your advantage? The clock is ticking, the world is watching, and somewhere out there, someone is betting that you'll stay small, stay quiet, stay easy to overlook. Prove them wrong. Not with words, not with anger, but with action, with results, with the kind of victory that leaves no room for doubt. This is your moment, the beginning of a story that's going to shake the ground beneath their feet. They thought you were nothing. They thought you were a pawn in their game. But you were never a pawn. You were the queen lying in wait, ready to strike when the board was clear. So take a breath. Let their doubts fuel you. Let their arrogance blind them. And then, when the time is right, show them what happens when you play dumb and outsmart them all. You've been carrying it for so long, haven't you? That quiet ache that no one sees, the sting of being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. It clings to you like a shadow, following you into every room, every conversation, every dream you've dared to share. You brought with you so much to the table, so much to memory. When you realized our holdings become knowledge of you, so much to the truth, you brought with you into every room, every conversation, every dream you've dared to share. You walk in and it's as if the world doesn't even notice. Or worse, they notice just enough to write you off. They've called you naive, haven't they? They've smiled that smug little smile when you talked about your dreams, as if your ambition was some kind of joke. They laughed, not always out loud, but in those subtle cutting ways that made you feel small. And over time, you started to wonder, maybe they're right. Maybe you are a fool for dreaming so big, for thinking you could be something more. That doubt, they planted it, but you watered it. Let's be honest, it hurts. It hurts to feel invisible, to feel like the world sees you but doesn't really see you. Like you're standing in the middle of the stage, shouting your truth, and no one's even bothering to look up. It's exhausting, isn't it? The way you keep trying to prove yourself only to be met with silence or worse, indifference. And then there are the doubters. Oh, they love to make themselves known, don't they? They're the ones who look at you and see only limits. You can't do that. That's not for people like you. Why don't you try something more realistic? They think they're being helpful, but really, they're just afraid. Afraid of what you might become. Afraid that if you succeed, it'll remind them of everything they didn't have the courage to chase. But let's not pretend it's just them. No, there's another voice in this story. A villain that's even harder to face. Your own voice. The one that echoes their doubts, that takes their sneers and turns them into gospel. The one that tells you, in your quietest moments, that maybe they're right, that maybe you're not enough, that maybe you should just settle. The one that fails to know you as much as it destroys you. The one that tears you apart and hurts you the most because it loves you the least. The one that finds perfection in your infamy. That voice, it's a liar, but it's convincing, isn't it? It knows all your weak spots, all your fears, all the things you wish you could hide. It's been with you for so long that it feels like a part of you. But let me tell you something. It's not you. It's a parasite, feeding on your insecurities, growing stronger every time you let someone else's opinion dictate your worth. I know what it feels like to carry that weight, to wake up every day and wonder if today will be the day you finally break free, only to go to bed feeling even more trapped, to see others succeed and feel that bitter cocktail of envy and self-loathing, because deep down, you think they have something you don't. To dream of a life that feels just out of reach, like a beautiful, impossible mirage. And let's talk about the walls, the ones you've built around yourself. You didn't build them out of weakness, you built them out of necessity. Because every time you let someone in, every time you dared to hope, they gave you another reason to shut them out. Another reason to play it safe, to stay small, to protect what little confidence you have left. Those walls were meant to keep the pain out, but now they're keeping you in. And they play the same games that you did. They reprogram your mind to believe the truth instead of yourself, instead of each other. So now they're keeping you in. It's not fair, is it? The way the world loves to celebrate the loudest, the flashiest, the ones who seem to have it all figured out. Meanwhile, you're here, quietly working, quietly dreaming, quietly hoping that someday someone will see you for who you really are. But let me tell you something. Waiting for someone to see you is a fool's game. Because the truth is, They're too busy looking at themselves. If you want to be seen, you have to make them look. And that starts with you. But before we get there, let's sit with this pain for a moment, because it deserves to be acknowledged. You deserve to be acknowledged. Everything you've been through, the doubts, the dismissals, the heartbreak, it's real, it's valid, and it's not your fault. You didn't ask for this. You didn't ask to be underestimated, but here you are, carrying it anyway. So let's call it what it is. It's not just a struggle, it's a battle. And every day you fight it, whether you realize it or not. Every time you get out of bed when all you want to do is hide, you're fighting. Every time you take a step forward, no matter how small, you're fighting. Every time you look in the mirror and choose to keep going, even when you don't believe in yourself, you're fighting. And that makes you a warrior. But here's the thing about warriors. They don't fight forever. Eventually they win, or they change the game entirely. And that's what you're gonna do. Because this struggle you're in, it's not the end of your story. It's the beginning. The pain, the doubt, the fear, they're not chains, they're fuel. They're the fire that's gonna burn away everything that's been holding you back. For now though, it's okay to feel what you're feeling, to sit with the weight of it all, to grieve the opportunities you've missed, the chances you didn't take, the person you think you could have been. But don't stay there too long, because the truth is, you're still here, you're still breathing, and as long as you're alive, you have the power to change everything. So take a deep breath, look at the walls you've built and the weight you've been carrying, acknowledge it, honor it, and then start imagining what it's gonna feel like when you let it all go, because that's where we're headed. Section 4, differentiation, proven method toward freedom, toward power, toward a life where being underestimated isn't a curse, but a weapon. A life where you don't just survive, you thrive. This is the turning point. The moment where you stop seeing yourself through their eyes and start seeing yourself for who you really are. You've been quiet long enough. You've let them write the narrative long enough. It's time to pick up the pen and start writing your own story. And trust me when I say, it's going to be a masterpiece. Let's stop for a moment and look at the cost. The real cost of staying quiet, of staying small, of letting them tell you who you are. It's heavier than you think, isn't it? Heavier than you've ever admitted to yourself. Because every time you stayed silent, every time you doubted yourself, every time you let their words define you, you gave away a piece of yourself. And now, here you are, standing in the ruins of all those pieces, wondering how it got this far. It's like being trapped in quicksand. At first, you think you can fight it, pull yourself out. But the harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. And so, eventually, you stop fighting. If you tell yourself it's easier this way, then maybe you belong here. But deep down, you know the truth. This isn't where you're meant to be. This isn't who you're meant to be. Think about all the times you stayed in the background when you knew you had something to say. All the times you let someone else take the credit, take the spotlight, take the moment that should have been yours. Think about all the dreams you let die because you were too afraid to chase them. So Maria, afraid of failing, afraid of succeeding, afraid of what they might think. Do you feel it? That weight in your chest, that ache that never quite goes away? That's the cost, that's the pain of unfulfilled potential, of knowing you're capable of more but not knowing how to reach it. It's like being a bird that's forgotten how to fly, pacing back and forth in a cage you built yourself. The door is open, but you can't bring yourself to step through it, so you stay, convincing yourself it's safer this way, that it's better to stay grounded than to risk falling. But let me ask you something. Is it really safer? Is it really better? Because every day you spend in that cage, you're dying a little inside. Not in a dramatic way, but in a slow, insidious way that eats away at your soul. Every dream you bury, every chance you don't take, every time you tell yourself maybe tomorrow instead of right now, you're cutting yourself off from the person you were meant to be. And for what? To make them comfortable? To avoid rocking the boat? To live up to someone else's expectations of who you should be? Let me tell you something. Their comfort isn't worth your sacrifice. Their expectations aren't worth your potential. In the boat, it's time to set it on fire and build your own. But let's not gloss over the despair, because it's real. It's heavy. It's suffocating. It wraps itself around you like a thick fog, convincing you that this is all there is, that this is all there will ever be. And the worst part, a part of you starts to believe it. A part of you starts to think that maybe this is as good as it gets, that maybe you're not capable of more. That's the lie despair tells you, that you're stuck, that you're powerless, that the best you can do is survive. But here's the truth. Despair is a liar. It's loud, it's persistent, but it's not the truth. And the truth is, you're not stuck. You're not powerless. You're not broken. You're just waiting. Waiting for the moment when you decide to stop surviving and start living. So let's look at that despair, that weight, that cage you've been living in. Let's acknowledge it. Because as painful as it is, it's also a gift. It's a wake-up call. A reminder that this isn't where your story ends. This despair you're feeling, it's not your enemy. It's your catalyst. The fire that's going to burn away everything that's been holding you back. Think about it. Every time you've been underestimated, every time you've been dismissed, every time you've doubted yourself, it's been building up inside you, hasn't it? Like a dam holding back a flood, and the pressure keeps growing, the cracks keep forming, until one day it's gonna burst. And when it does, when you finally let go of all that fear, all that doubt, all that pain, you're gonna realize something. They can't clip your wings unless you let them. They can't keep you in that cage unless you decide to stay there. The key has been in your hand this whole time. All you have to do is use it. But here's the thing. It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna happen overnight. You're gonna have to fight for it. You're gonna have to face the doubts, the fears, the voices that tell you you're not enough. Bill MK, you're gonna have to take a hard look at the person you've been and decide that you're ready to become someone new. And it's gonna hurt. Transformation always does. But let me tell you something. The pain of staying where you are is so much worse. The pain of looking back on your life and realizing you never gave yourself a chance, that you let the world dictate your story instead of writing your own. That pain is unbearable, and you don't deserve that. You deserve more. So let this despair fuel you. Let it remind you of everything you're capable of. Let it push you to break free from the cage you've been living in. Because this isn't the end of your story. It's the turning point. The moment where you stop letting the world define you and start defining yourself. Take a deep breath. Look at the walls around you, the chains that have been holding you back, and then start imagining what it's going to feel like when they're gone, because that's where you're headed, toward freedom, toward power, toward a life where you don't just survive, you soar. Now, here's where the story shifts. Everything you've endured, the doubts, the dismissals, the despair, it wasn't for nothing. You didn't go through all of that just to stay broken. No, all of it was building you into something stronger, something sharper. The time for waiting is over. It's time to take everything they used against you and turn it into the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Let me tell you something about being underestimated. It's a superpower. Think about it. When they think you're nothing, they don't see you coming. They don't prepare for you. They don't guard against you. That's your opening. That's your moment to move, to strike, to build something so undeniable that by the time they realize what's happening, it's already too late. You've been playing this game all along, you just didn't realize it. They set the rules, sure. They decided who gets to sit at the table, who gets a voice, who gets to succeed. But here's the thing about their rules. They're built on arrogance. They're built on the assumption that people like you, quiet, overlooked, underestimated, will never learn how to play. And that assumption, it's their biggest weakness. Take a look at water. It's soft, quiet, unassuming. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention. But when it finds a crack, when it learns how to flow, it becomes unstoppable. It carves through mountains, wears down stone, creates pathways where none existed before. That's you, your water. And once you learn to flow through the cracks they didn't bother to seal, you'll become a force they can't contain. But once you learn to flow through the cracks they didn't bother to seal, you'll become a force they can't contain. Let's talk about strategy. This isn't about fighting harder, it's about moving smarter. The world loves loud, flashy moves, but the real victories are won in silence. They're won by those who watch, who learn, who bide their time. Every time they underestimated you, they gave you a gift, the opportunity to learn their patterns, their weaknesses, their blind spots. Now it's time to use that knowledge. Think about the stories you've heard of the underdogs who rose to power. They weren't the loudest. They weren't the strongest. They were the ones who understood the game better than anyone else. Look at someone like David in the face of Goliath. He didn't fight harder, he fought smarter. He didn't meet his enemy on their terms. He created his own terms. And when the dust settled, it wasn't Goliath who stood victorious. Or take the story of the Trojan horse. The Greeks didn't win by brute force. They won because they understood their enemy's arrogance. They need to feel superior. They used that arrogance against them, creating a strategy that no one saw coming. And when the gates opened, it was already too late. The same principle applies to you. This isn't about meeting your challenges head on. It's about learning how to navigate around them. And if you can do that under pressure, you can learn how to navigate around them. Ultra did the same when the gates were opened 2 years later. And when they call you weak, You use their underestimation to gather strength. When they dismiss you, you let their guard down. When they ignore you, you build quietly in the background. And then, when the moment is right, you move with precision and purpose, leaving them scrambling to catch up. But let's bring it back to you. What does this look like in your life? Maybe it's the job you didn't get, the promotion they said you weren't ready for. Maybe it's the relationships that fell apart because they didn't see your worth. Maybe it's the dreams you put on hold because you thought you needed their approval. Whatever it is, it's time to stop waiting. It's time to start building. Here's what you need to remember. Every perceived weakness can be turned into a strength. Your quietness, that's your ability to observe, to learn, to strategize. Your doubt, that's your reminder to stay humble, to keep growing, to never stop questioning how you can improve. Your struggles, they're your training ground, the fire that's forging you into something stronger. Let me give you a real-life example. Think about someone like Oprah Winfrey. She was born into poverty, faced rejection, and was told she wasn't good enough for television. They wrote her off. But instead of letting those rejections define her, she used them as fuel. She learned the game, she mastered her craft, and she built an empire that no one could ignore. Or take J.K. Rowling, who faced countless rejections before anyone believed in her story. They said no over and over again until she stopped waiting for their approval and decided to bet on herself. Now her name is synonymous with success, not because she fought harder, but because she moved smarter. She didn't let their doubt become her truth. This is the mindset you need to adopt. Every time they tell you no, you hear not yet. Every time they doubt you, you see an opportunity. Every time they underestimate you, you smile, because you know something they don't. You're playing the long game. But here's the thing about the long game. It requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires the courage to move in silence, to build without applause, to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. It's not easy, but nothing worth having ever is. So start small. Start with one move, one step, one crack where you can let the water flow. Maybe it's a skill you need to master, a connection you need to build, or a fear you need to face. Whatever it is, focus on that. Don't worry about the big picture right now. Just focus on the next move, the next step, the next opportunity to turn your perceived weakness into an undeniable strength. And as you move, remember this: they don't see you coming. They're not prepared for what you're about to become, and that's your greatest advantage. They think you're nothing, but you're everything. Ha ha! They think you're weak, but you're stronger than they'll ever understand. They think they've won, but the truth is the game hasn't even started yet. So go. Move quietly, but with purpose. Build slowly, but with intention. And when the time comes, strike with everything you've got. Because when they think you're nothing, that's when you show them you're everything. When they think they've outsmarted you, that's when you prove you've been playing the game better all along. This is your moment, the shift, the awakening, the beginning of a story that ends with you standing victorious. They thought you were playing dumb, but all along, you've been playing smart. Now, it's time to win. Here we are, the turning point. Everything you've been through, every doubt you've faced, every time they underestimated you, has led you here, to this moment, to this realization. You've been playing their game all along, but now it's time to change the rules. It's time to shift the board and start playing your game. They've been playing checkers, simple, reactive, predictable, but you're learning chess. They have 6 quarters of action, one for each of us. The way each tries to counter a throw, the other wins the goose. Simple, reactive, predictable. But you're learning choose. You're learning how to see the whole board, how to think 5 moves ahead, how to create a strategy so precise, so unstoppable, that by the time they realize what's happening, the game is already over. This is the moment you stop surviving and start thriving, the moment you take control. Let's start with the truth. You don't owe them anything. Not your explanations, not your compliance, not your energy. For too long, you've been playing to prove yourself to them, to show them your worth. But here's the thing. They were never the ones who needed convincing. The only proof you need is in the results. And those results, they'll speak louder than any words, louder than any argument, louder than any validation they could ever give you. So let me ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to stop playing their game? Are you ready to start winning your own? Are you ready to stop reacting to their moves and start creating your own strategy? Because this is the moment you choose. This is the moment you step out of the shadows and into the light of your own potential. Take a deep breath and look back at everything you've been through. Every pain, every rejection, every time they said you weren't enough. At the time, it felt like failure, didn't it? Like the world was closing in on you. like you'd never get out from under their shadow. But now, looking back, you see it differently. Those moments weren't failures. They were lessons. They were lessons. They were training. They were the foundation for the person you're about to become. Think about it. Every time they doubted you, you learned something. You learned how to be resilient. You learned how to be resourceful. You learned how to see through their arrogance and find the cracks in their armor. And now, you're armed with all of that knowledge, all of that strength, ready to use it in ways they'll never see coming. And what do? You break the ice. This is your awakening, the moment you realize you've been holding the power all along. They didn't give it to you, and they can't take it away. It's yours, and it always has been. The only thing that's changed is that now you see it. Now you feel it. Now you're ready to wield it. Let's talk about control. For too long you've been giving it away, to their opinions, to their expectations, to their doubts, but not anymore. From this moment forward, you're the one in control. You decide what matters. You decide what's possible. You decide who you are and what you're capable of. And let me tell you something. You're capable of more than they'll ever understand. You've been playing small because you thought that's all you were allowed to do. But here's the truth. There are no rules. Not for people like you. Not for people who are willing to see beyond the game, to rewrite the script, to take what they were given and turn it into something extraordinary. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. The only thing you need is the courage to take the first step. So let me ask you again, are you ready? Are you ready to stop waiting for someone else to open the door and start kicking it down? Are you ready to stop letting their doubts define you and start defining yourself? Are you ready to stop playing by their rules and start creating your own? Because here's the truth. They thought they broke you, but all they did was make you stronger. They thought they silenced you, but all they did was teach you how to listen to yourself, to your instincts, to your power. They thought they buried you, but they forgot one thing. Seeds grow in the dark, and now you're ready to rise. Let's imagine it for a moment. Close your eyes and picture the life you've been dreaming of, the life where you're no longer held back by fear or doubt. The life where you're no longer held back by fear or doubt. A life where you move with confidence, with purpose, with a strategy so unstoppable that nothing can stand in your way. Picture it, feel it, that's your life. Not someday, not when they finally see your worth. Right now, that's the life you start building today. And let's be clear, this isn't about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were always right, that you've always had the potential, the strength, the brilliance to create something extraordinary. They just couldn't see it. But now, it doesn't matter whether they see it or not, because you see it, and that's enough. Here's how it starts. You take one step, just one. Maybe it's a small one, learning a new skill, setting a boundary, speaking up for yourself in a way you never have before. Or maybe it's a big one, leaving a job that's been holding you back, starting a project that scares you, walking away from people who don't value you. Whatever it is, take that step, and then take another, and another. Because the journey of 1,000 miles, it doesn't start with a leap, it starts with a step. As you move forward, you'll notice something incredible. The power you've been chasing, the strength you've been searching for, it's been inside you all along. It's not something you find, it's something you unlock. And every step you take, every move you make, will unlock a little bit more. Every obstacle you face, every challenge that stands in your way, is an opportunity in disguise. The world will tell you to stop, to turn back, to give up. But here's the secret. The people who win, who rise above, who rewrite the rules, they see those obstacles differently. They see them as doors waiting to be opened, lessons waiting to be learned, strategies waiting to be discovered. Think about it. Every time someone told you no, they gave you a chance to grow. Every time someone doubted you, they gave you the gift of freedom. Freedom to move without their expectations weighing you down. Your job now is to start looking for those opportunities. Where others see dead ends, you see possibilities. Where others see walls, you see cracks. Step 2. Stay patient and strategic while others rush. The world moves fast. People rush into decisions, chasing quick wins, scrambling for validation. But you're playing the long game. You've learned that power doesn't come from being the loudest or the fastest. It comes from being the smartest, from knowing when to move and when to wait, from staying quiet when others shout, and striking when the time is right. Patience is your weapon. It's the thing they don't expect, the thing they can't match. While they're burning themselves out, you're building. While they're celebrating small wins, you're preparing for something bigger. Remember, the greatest moves are made in silence. Keep your strategy close, your intentions quiet, and your focus unshakable. When the moment comes, they won't know what hit them. Step 3. Learn, adapt, and keep moving. Step 3. Learn, adapt, and keep moving. Life is a game of constant adaptation. The world will throw curveballs, plans will fall apart, and the path you thought you'd take will change. That's not failure, it's growth. The people who succeed aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get back up, learn from the fall, and keep moving. Think of yourself as a river. Obstacles don't stop a river, they redirect it. The current finds another way, carving new paths, flowing through cracks, and eventually reaching its destination. You're the same. Every setback is a chance to learn, to grow stronger, to become more resilient. Keep moving, keep flowing, because as long as you're moving, you're winning. Step 4. Know when to strike. You've been learning, growing, building in silence. Now it's time to act. Not impulsively, not recklessly, but with precision and purpose. The world won't hand you opportunities. You'll have to create them. And when you see your moment, don't hesitate. Move with confidence, knowing that everything you've been through has prepared you for this. This is your time, your moment to prove to yourself, not to them, but to yourself, that you were always capable, that you were always enough, that all the doubts, all the setbacks, all the struggles were shaping you into the person you needed to become. They thought you were weak. They thought you were a fool. But when you rise, they'll see you weren't playing dumb. You were playing the long game. So here's the challenge. Will you rise? Will you take everything you've learned, everything you've endured, and use it to build something extraordinary? Will you stop playing by their rules and start creating your own? Will you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself the green light? Because the truth is, no one's coming to save you. No one's gonna hand you your power. You have to claim it. You have to own it. You have to rise and show the world that the person they underestimated, the person they overlooked, was the one they should have been watching all along. Take a moment. Look at where you are. Look at everything you've been through. And then look ahead. See the life you want, the person you're becoming, the victories waiting for you to claim. It's all within reach, but you have to move. You have to act. You have to take the first step, and then the next, and then the next, until you look back and realize you've climbed higher than you ever thought possible. This is your time, your turning point, your moment to rise. They thought you were playing dumb. They thought you were weak. But the truth is, you've been quietly building, quietly strategizing, quietly preparing for this moment. And now it's here. Go, thrive, outsmart them all, rewrite the rules. And when they finally see what you've built, they won't just see your success. They'll see the brilliance, the resilience, the unstoppable force they never saw coming. This is your story, your victory, your rise. Make it unforgettable. You look back for a moment, not in regret, but in recognition. Look back at everything you've endured, every moment of doubt, every time they dismissed you, every time you doubted yourself. What do you see now? You see strength, you see resilience. You see a person who, despite the weight of the world pressing down, refused to crumble. You see someone who has been quietly building the foundation for something extraordinary. This journey hasn't been easy. It wasn't meant to be. Easy paths don't create strong people. The struggle, the pain, the quiet moments where you wondered if you'd ever rise, it was all part of the process. A refining fire, burning away the doubts, the fears, the insecurities, until what's left is something unbreakable. Think about the lessons you've learned along the way. You've learned that being underestimated is not a curse, it's a gift. It's the freedom to move unnoticed, to build without interference, to grow without limits. You've learned that silence is not weakness, it's a strategy. And when you speak, when you act, it's with purpose, precision, and power. You've discovered that your perceived weaknesses are, in fact, your greatest strengths. Your quietness has made you observant. Your patience has made you strategic. Your struggles have made you resilient. The very things they used to dismiss you are the things that now make you unstoppable. And here's the most important lesson of all. You've realized that the power you've been searching for was never in their hands. Footnote, it's never in their validation, their approval, or their acceptance. It's been in you all along, waiting, growing, ready to be unleashed. This transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally becoming who you've always been. It's about shedding the layers of doubt, fear, and expectation that the world placed on you, and stepping into your true self, the person who is strong, capable, and brilliant, the person who is ready to rewrite the rules, to play the long game, to build a life so extraordinary that no one can ignore it. Take a moment to let that sink in. Feel the weight of everything you've carried, everything you've overcome. And now, feel it lift. Evolution, because you're no longer defined by your struggles, you're defined by what you've done with them. You're not a victim of your circumstances, You're a creator of your destiny. So where do you go from here? The answer is simple: forward. You keep moving, keep building, keep strategizing. You take everything you've learned and use it to create a life that reflects your power, your brilliance, your resilience. You don't wait for opportunities, you create them. You don't play by their rules, you write your own. And as you move forward, remember this: they'll still underestimate you. They'll still doubt you, dismiss you, try to keep you small. But now, you know the truth. Every time they underestimate you, they hand you an advantage. Every time they doubt you, they give you freedom. Every time they dismiss you, they give you the space to grow. The keys to your victory have always been in your hands. Every doubt, every dismissal, every moment of despair, they were never obstacles. They were opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to grow, to build something so undeniable, so extraordinary, that by the time they see it, it's already too late. So here's your final challenge. Take the key. Take everything you've learned, everything you've built, and run. Run toward the life you've been dreaming of. Run toward the person you've always known you could be. Run and don't look back, because every time they underestimated you, they handed you the key to victory. Now take it and run.